Clair Obscur Expedition 33, while a beautiful experience all throughout, is, at its core, a sad game. No matter what ending you choose, there is always something being lost. One shows how grief can lead to self-destruction and emotional manipulation, while the other results in a mass extinction event across the entire canvas. There is, in all honesty, not a single character in the story of Clair Obscur that is without tragedy. That being said, I don't believe the opposite of love to be hatred. The more accurate answer would be indifference. To not be cared about, considered less than or othered. But even worse, to be casted away and forgotten as if you never mattered in the first place. That is the fate of Clair Obscur Expedition 33's most tragic character, and the game's hardest challenge, Simon. In the beginning, Old Lumiere was just as vibrant and thriving as any real town would have been, full of joy, heartbreak, families, and friends. In this painted world, Aline and her creations were able to live out their days as if the Desandra fire had never occurred. And although her real-world husband, Renoir, would eventually come to fracture the continent in what would eventually become the start of their long stalemate inside the monolith, it wasn't before Aline's painted family was able to immerse themselves fluently within the world their mother created for them. One of the poor souls that had the misfortune of getting entangled in the Desandra family was a man named Simon. While not much was known about his painted life, it can be assumed he was a man of honorable status. Despite the fractured continent being a complete unknown to the people of Lumiere at this point, Simon was one of the brave warriors who stepped up to participate in Expedition Zero, the very first team tasked with exploring this new world. At some point before or during Expedition Zero, Simon became close friends with Verso. The other Desandra family member Simon was familiar with was Clea, actually forming a relationship with her painted copy, the two of them falling in love and forming an oath of trust, bound together for life. While clearly just a symbol of their bond, Simon and Clea obviously trusted each other more than anybody else, which just makes Simon's eventual fall from grace all the more terrible. Hey guys, real quick, if you want to support the channel, make sure you go down to gamersubs.gg/noop and get 10% off your nootropics and energy supplement fix, and we'll get back to the video. In Act 3, during a conversation between Painted Verso and Alicia, it's revealed that just before Expedition Zero entered the monolith, they were stopped by the real-world Clea. However, before this encounter, it seems that real-world Clea had stumbled upon Aline's painted version of herself. Becoming vexed by her mother's creation, Clea would paint over the copy, locking the doppelganger inside of the Flying Manor and enslaving her to endlessly paint Nevrons. But with painted Clea gone, there is one person that would endlessly search for her without relent. And instead of wasting that morale, real-world Clea decided that she would exploit Simon's love to both her and Renoir's benefit. Posing as her painted self, Clea managed to lure Simon away from Expedition Zero, Verso claiming it's as if his friend just disappeared out of the blue one day. By abusing Simon's emotions, real-world Clea was able to convince the expeditioner that the paintress was the true enemy of the world, bestowing Simon with painted power and sending him first to slay the Axon of Old Lumiere. Ironically enough, another painted version of Clea that was created by Renoir. After gaining the strength to breach the barrier and enter the monolith, Simon was tasked with defeating the paintress and hopefully forcing Clea's mother out of the canvas and back to reality. It seems that upon meeting Aline though, she was able to expose Clea and Renoir's lies to Simon and direct his anger back towards the two of them, revealing to Simon that it was real-world Clea who replaced and sealed his true love away, as well as explaining that the actual threat to their world was Renoir, the bringer of the Gommage. With godlike power capable of single-handedly slaying an Axon, Simon saw no other choice but to set his sights on Renoir, the belief that by ejecting Aline's husband from the canvas instead, Simon would not only save his world, but free painted Clea from the paintress's grasp. Unfortunately, it's unknown exactly what occurred between these 2 points, but it ended up with Simon losing to Renoir, or once again being tricked this time into his own containment, as Simon becomes trapped beneath the monolith in what can only be known as the Abyss, a whirling, reality-bending prison lost within the deepest, most chaotic pits of the canvas. Surrounded by golden blades, assumedly remnants of his attempts to escape, as years pass, Simon is forever taunted by the voice of painted Clea. Over time, his mind has been lost to the painter's temptations. This is only a guess as to why and what is happening here, but based on what Alicia says when the party meets painted Clea in the Flying Manor about it taking an extremely skilled painter to paint over another's creation, it should be assumed that Clea is the only family member powerful enough to accomplish such a feat. Assuming that Renoir, who was constantly said to be a weaker painter, was incapable of painting over his wife's creation as effectively as Clea was, it's safe to say, due to Simon's strong will and Clea bestowing him with dominance over Chroma, the only real way to affect Simon would be to slowly break his mind over time. Interestingly enough, this might even be proven true when you consider both painted Clea and Simon survive the final gommage after Renoir assumes control of the canvas, Clea's influence being enough to keep the two alive, at least until they both give in to their grief. Which, sadly, is something that finally seems to occur during Simon's boss battle against the protagonist party. When faced with his former friend Verso and the members of Expedition 33, Simon is incapable at this point of even speaking. The expeditioner's body is cracking and falling apart, prolonged unnaturally past its lifetime. The hulking revenant that was once Simon can only groan in agony and turn his unquelled anger onto the first visitors he's had in decades. In what might be the hardest boss fight in all of Expedition 33, Simon displays perfectly why he was able to kill an Axon by himself. With extremely devastating combos, all launched supposedly at light speed, whether Simon is slashing his colossal blade of light at the party or planting it into the ground and attacking them with his bare hands, the raw force behind every blow is enough to one-shot any character unlucky enough to miss a dodge parry cue. But what's even scarier is Simon's control over Chroma. Where other bosses have merely tried to launch splashes of concentrated Chroma as if they were waves of energy blasts, Simon wields Chroma much more efficiently, showing just how much power can be granted by a paintress of Clea's level, dropping a party member to 1 HP and sometimes debuffing them of every stat. And if a character is left unconscious for too long, Simon can actually eject them from the canvas permanently, displaying enough master control to even remove a painted person's existence. After Simon's first phase is bested, just before the Revenant can pass on, a voice triggers the dormant power within the Sword of Lumiere. Having finally lost the last ounce of resistance he had left, the brainwashing of painted Clea's words takes over the empty vessel, bringing Simon back to life and breaking all of his limits. It was truly always his promise of devotion to Clea that overrode all else. The sudden difficulty jump in what was already a hard boss battle symbolizes the dedication one man could have to the woman he loves. In Simon's second phase, he summons the true power of the Sword of Lumiere, able to bring down whole pillars of blinding light that pierce the opponent and leave behind one of the golden blades that so familiarly surround the ruins of old Lumiere. And by channeling his power over Chroma and light itself, Simon can create full-on after images of his attacks that follow right behind his strikes. The further down Simon's health bar goes, the stronger he becomes, able to take too many turns after the other now, while also having a second after image that joins in to the already endless swarm of attacks. In the background, a massive void orb overlooks the abyss, a testament and symbol of true painted power and also a display of Simon's resolve. Even Simon's boss theme, entitled We Lost, depicts the tragedy of being forgotten. Named after Clair Obscur Expedition 33's first draft, a version of the game that was completely different from the final rendition and followed a vastly separate storyline. It's even possible that Simon was a leftover character from that original draft, with leaked footage showing characters like Mael, Lune, and Verso, but also alongside them unknown and cut party members such as Freya, with the original story having much more to do with aspects of betrayal and the game taking place after the main heroes lost their final battle with the villains. We can get some kind of hint as to what Simon's story was going to, or used used to be. Now a member of the original Expedition Zero, an old friend of Verso who simply disappeared and ended up lost and forgotten in the abyss of Renoir's drafts. None of this can be a coincidence. The tragedy of Simon is one of the most interesting pieces of hidden content across Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And to be honest, even real-world Clea had to see something in Simon. I mean, she was willing to entrust him with this much power. It really is a shame that a character like Simon, a warrior who embodied honor and fought to the end, both physically and mentally, for the one he loved, ends up lost and forgotten in the depths of the abyss. But at least after being defeated by Verso and the protagonist party, the Sword of Lumiere can finally rest, passing on the weight of his oath to his old friend Verso. You know, as if he wasn't already dealing with enough responsibility. At least it's all over now. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Let me know what other Clair Obscur topics you'd like to see, and make sure to like and subscribe so the algorithm convinces more people to play this masterpiece of a game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.